folks, this is Dr. Kat Schreier, and welcome back to the Water Show, where we talk to some really interesting people doing really amazing things in the water space. And today is no exception. We have with us today Chuck Kile, who's coming to us from Coeur d'Alene, Idaho. How's the weather up there, Chuck? How's it going in
there? It's cold and been raining for like 3 weeks, but can't complain.
Well, that's an area that has a lot of springs and a lot of interaction with groundwater, isn't it?
Yep, we're sitting on top of a gigantic aquifer here where I'm at.
And that's actually what we're going to be talking about today. Is Chuck has got a really interesting niche because he's really taken his background with understanding construction and groundwater companies and added to that all of his amazing capabilities in website design and business and everything. So Chuck, why don't you tell everyone a little bit about yourself, your background, and how that got you where you are today?
Sure. So my background is in residential construction. I grew up remodeling homes with my family's company. And, about 5 or 6 years ago, after doing this for over a decade, the company I was working for found that they didn't have any business coming in. They didn't have any customers coming in. And in order to save my job, I decided to pick up marketing and learn how to get people coming through the door, get the phone ringing. And, this is a really short and condensed version of this, but at this point, I've been providing marketing services for construction companies for about 6 years. And about 3 years ago, I was introduced to the groundwater industry through a guy named Gary Hicks. And talking to Gary, he informed me that there's huge opportunity for what I was doing with construction companies for groundwater companies, in particular, like well drillers, pump contractors, the local service side of the industry. Mm-hmm. And so I attended Groundwater Week. I started meeting people, talking to them, and I realized that they're exactly like my family's company. It's a lot of mom and pop shops. It's a lot of local businesses. And these folks in particular were not really online. Online was a completely new thing to them. Yeah. And so after working with a few of them, helping them get their online presence established and seeing the amazing results they get from just being able to be found online, at this point, I'm traveling around the country, speaking at different events, getting the word out and helping companies one at a time, figure out how to make the internet work for them. So that's what I'm up to.
And that's so important. And yeah, you may know that my background is also in groundwater. That's where I got started. Before engineering, I was doing aquifer storage. I was doing groundwater investigations, and you kind of have the within the groundwater organizations, you kind of have the scientists and the engineers and the modelers over on one side. And then you got the hardcore out in the field, stomping around, drilling wells, taking samples, all the other, doing well maintenance and all that stuff. And you're right, it is a much, it's not your typical, sit in the office and look at blueprints or run models, or, a lot of the water sector tends to be a lot more sort of that indoor office kind of work. And in the groundwater side, it's really not the case, right?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, there's multiple sides and there's people doing all sorts of different things. Basically, we can help anybody who can benefit from being found online. So we do work with some of the modelers and the engineers and the consultants, and maybe the strategies will vary a little bit, but at the end of the day, like we're doing really basic stuff. It's just helping people get online. Nothing crazy, nothing like super state of the art. It's just what's worked since the beginning of the internet. We're helping people catch up a little bit.
Yeah. Well, and that's been one of the major issues that COVID has really brought to light, is that there are so many people that were so wholly dependent on just getting together face to face, belly to belly in the room, who you shake hands with, that's who you hire. And now people need to really not just get online in terms of having a website or throwing up a YouTube channel or something, but actually thinking about how do you distinguish yourself online? How do you convey the value of what you do. And especially when you're dealing with something like groundwater, which you're probably familiar with the old court case that describes groundwater as secret and occult, and people don't understand groundwater. And now you're supposed to hire someone to help you with your groundwater, which a lot of people, is it an underground lake? Is it a river? Is it people don't understand groundwater. And now you've got people offering those services. Is it just, are people still just doing sort of the lowest price point gets the job, or how do people really convey the value of what they do?
Well, it's funny, like drilling for wells is a lot like what I do with marketing. Like they have to find ways to demonstrate their expertise with people that don't understand anything about it. And then at the same time convey that there's an art to it. There's a lot of wells that get drilled that don't produce anything. Just like there's a lot of websites that get made that don't produce anything. And so, it's a very similar situation, just coming from the other angle. And we find that just, a lot of a website is about demonstrating who you are. Most of the groundwater people that I've met are really awesome people. They're wholesome, they have integrity, they're honest. A lot of them are multi-generation companies. Just letting people know who they are, and letting them know that they're trustworthy and that they've got sometimes over 100 years of experience drilling wells in this area. That's often enough. Like, we don't have to really convince anybody of anything a lot of times. When there's so little competition online for groundwater companies, that sometimes just getting your name seen when someone types something into Google is enough to get the phone ringing 3 times as much. So,
well, the funny thing is so we connected because Water Citizens, since COVID started, we've started a program called the Virtual Water Education Lab, where we're working with water and environmental professionals, including folks in the groundwater space, on how to create, validate, and launch virtual programs. And it starts with just connecting with people face to face, which is something people really miss, right? And it's something you can also, once you make that connection, once you develop a program, one of the next steps is how do you get that out there online, and for people not to be afraid to show their personality, and to actually, in the ground, the water utility space, we talk a lot about, well, nobody understands water because all the pipelines underground. Well, the people are underground also. We don't see the people, and you're right, there's such amazing people in the water space. And how do you get people to add their personality, to add their faces, to add a video of them into their website? Or do you just kind of do a straight little, Wix, Squarespace, we do groundwater, here's our phone number, hire us?
it definitely varies for our clients. A lot of them are hesitant to even put a picture of themselves up. We do our best to explain why this is important, to demonstrate why it's important. But I think, it's like people are just uncomfortable with it. It's the same thing of getting up and speaking in front of people. That's like the number one biggest fear of people, is public speaking. And, putting yourself out there online is like one step towards public speaking. And I remember when I started doing it, 5 or 6 years ago, I started writing articles. I remember like watching my analytics and watching like, oh my gosh, 4 people read my article. And like, I was sweating. I was like, I couldn't believe it. I was like, I'm just going to delete it. Don't want anyone to see it. And then over time, I got more comfortable with it. And now I put out videos. I do things like this, it's all good. So I think, it's just people just need to take baby steps. And, once they get a little bit of positive feedback, then they'll be more comfortable with it. But for most of our groundwater clients, it's like they've been in the yellow pages. That's all they've done. They have word of mouth, like they're not online at all. So just getting them online a little bit is a great first step. And then we work with people, on usually a monthly basis, but we work with people over the course of years. And so
Mm.
over time, we get them more and more established. They see the positive feedback, and, it becomes a normal thing for them.
Are they
But,
getting more comfortable with the video, with COVID? Obviously, you can't go out to a site and just, sit down with a homeowner or something like that as easily. Are they getting more comfortable with, say, getting on a Zoom call or Skype or Google Meets or whatever to talk to, clients and prospects? Are they doing more of that?
oh, definitely doing more of that. Like, I used to ask people, have you ever used Zoom before? And they'd be like, no, what are you talking about? Now, pretty much everybody has heard and used Zoom before. So, I mean, I think people just do what they have to do. If they can't go visit a job on site, but a video is going to help move them forward, then they'll do it. So, people are just got to adjust and do what they've got to do. And so far, we've seen everyone adapt quite well. But I think everyone's crossing their fingers, hoping things kind of go back to normal.
Yeah. Well, yeah, we'll see. And some of this also just doesn't make more sense to have an initial call be over a video call rather than driving all the way out to a site and finding out it's really that may or may not be a real issue happening at or how much you can find out just in a face-to-face call. I mean, so one of the things that we did in the lab, and that's one of the reasons we call it the lab, it's a safe space for people to try things out, was you were actually talking to people with groundwater companies to kind of get a better sense of what their challenges and fears and frustrations and aspirations and what they were looking for, what they wanted to learn. What were some of the things that came up for you when you did those calls, and what did you get out of that in the groundwater space?
Sure. So, first of all, that part of the program was, I think it's a critically important part for any business, especially people who are starting anything online or doing anything that hasn't been around for 200 years. And that's because, most people, they try to start something or put something out there without actually ever talking to their market, understanding them, asking them questions. When I was going through the Water Citizen program, I talked to like a couple dozen people and just got on a call with them with the intention of just asking them some questions and letting them tell me about themselves and what they're doing and what their problems are. And I learned things that I would have never heard about had I not done that. And it definitely changed the course of my business and allowed me to, offer products and services that actually address problems that people were dealing with, instead of just doing something and then throwing it against the wall and seeing if it sticks. So one of those things in particular was the fact that almost everybody I talked to is struggling to find and keep good workers. There's like a worker shortage going on for multiple reasons. But there's been a tradesman shortage for a long time, because I've been hearing about it my whole life. And so, now our company is, I'm traveling around. A lot of the topics I talk about relate to the employee and the worker side of things. And it's just helped me gear like what I'm doing towards the problems people are actually experiencing.
Yeah, that's so critical. Getting to that top of mind problem, that 3 a.m. What's keeping people up at night kind of problems, and then how to tie it back into the services you provide, the ways you're able to support them. What are some of the issues? What are some of the solutions that you've been talking to people about in terms of if you've got a shortage of I mean, not only do they have to use the internet to find clients, but they also have to use the internet to find employees, and then and then even manage their employees remotely, right?
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, it's a complicated problem, and everything in business is really intertwined. So, it's hard to just isolate the employee problem on its own. Like, you have to look at the rest of the business and see what's going on. And so, I think the main thing that needs to happen in order to attract more good people to this industry and to trades in general is that wages have to increase. And I know from personal experience that I started making a lot more money when I started working from my computer than I was working with tools in my hands. And economically, the choice was made for me. And I think that's how a lot of people feel these days. They can go work at McDonald's and make 15 bucks an hour, or they can go bust their hump, work in the rain and the snow and the heat, and come home sore every day and smash their fingers and probably make even less than that. And so wages need to come up in order to attract those people, and then they'll stick around for other reasons, but that can come later. And so we're a marketing company. We focus heavily on the customer acquisition side of things, and I've seen it with some of my clients where they start out, and one of the biggest problems they have is their employees are always calling in sick, they're not doing very good work, they're quitting all the time. And so the owner or the management has to double down and work twice as hard just to maintain things. Yeah. And then we come in, we just help them get established online. The number of phone calls, the number of customers coming in goes up dramatically, and the demand for their services skyrockets. And in order to balance the supply and demand, they're almost forced to raise the prices because they can't serve everybody. And they get to start picking and choosing what jobs they take. They basically gain the power to say no. And in doing that, their revenue goes up and they're allowed to raise their rates, pay better wages, hire better, more serious people, and keep them around. And it's like a feedback loop. They get better people, they do better work, their reputation gets better, they get more customers, and it just goes in a cycle. And it all started with fixing their customer acquisition and giving them the flexibility to charge what they know they should be charging and to say no to projects that aren't a good fit. So that's kind of, the main thing we're talking about. We've got other little strategies here and there, but I think that's one of the roots of the problem. And so unless we can figure out how to solve that, it's going to be an uphill battle.
Yeah. And what's so critical about that is it is absolutely vitally important for any organization to get to that point of financial stability. I mean, there's sort of that attitude of scientists and engineers and everything. Oh, we don't sell stuff. And as you say, look, I don't care what your organization, a nonprofit, an agency, what have you, you got to get to that financial stability, which means you got to have, revenue coming in that covers all your costs. And that includes bringing in your more junior level folks. And, this is about the future of the industry. If we're going to have, for on the science and engineering side and on the trades and the field activity side, we have to include enough to be able to bring in some of those junior folks to not just send them off on a job by themselves, to be able to have supervision, have the training, the mentoring that is just a part of that. And that means ensuring that you're conveying the value of what you offer to your clients, so that it's not just, whoever has the lowest price gets the job.
Yeah, for sure.
So I am excited about what you're doing. I think it's important for folks in groundwater, which, we've had a number of folks. I think there's appreciation for virtual education in the groundwater space, because you can't just take people down to the river and say, the groundwater aquifer and say, hey, look at that aquifer. We kind of get the idea of illustrating it virtually. But I think it's really important what you're doing of bringing people that understanding that the internet is not just about just getting a web domain and blasting out content. You really got to think about who your audience is, how to get that out there, and what your needs are as a business, and make sure that you're meeting your needs. So I'm glad you're part of the Water Citizen family, and thank you so much for everything you're doing. And do you have you've got some speaking engagements coming up? You're going to be at Nashville for National Groundwater Association. Is that right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Groundwater Week, their national or their yearly conference.
Nice, nice. All right, fantastic. Well, folks, go check them out. And where can people find you? Where can they find more information?
Sure. So my company is called Adapt Digital Solutions. So that's adapt is like being adaptable. And then I'm also on YouTube. Chuck the Contractor is my YouTube channel. So you can go there and hear me talk about this stuff for hundreds of hours if you so wish.
Chuck the Contractor. I love that. Well, thanks so much for joining us today, Chuck. Best of luck at Groundwater Week. Tell all my old friends I said hi. And thank you, folks, for joining us today at the Water Show. We'll see you again soon.
Thank you for having me.